Hey guys, welcome to Fircrest Phase 1. We have the sewer lines installed. As you can see, they backfilled it and compacted it. We'll do the pavement later. We have 8 different laterals for Phase 1. We're focusing on Phase 1 right now, which is going to be 4 buildings. They're all duplexes, so multiply that by 2. It's going to be a total of 8 units. And we're getting the sewer in, then the storm and water. We'll get everything graded out and prepped for sidewalk, curb, and pavement. And we will be all set to record those tax lots and begin building. Right here, we're gonna have the model home. I'm really excited. You guys can follow us along. In the model home, it's going to be ready to build in the next 30 to 60 days. And our goal is to build this one out in less than 75 days. So we're gonna be going real hard, real fast, and we're gonna make sure it's also a great quality product. The model home will be here, and then the rest of the duplexes are gonna continue along the street with a middle access. There will be a middle access to the back area, which is another 20 townhomes on Phase 2. The 20 townhomes most likely will be all duplexes. We're still in the works with the city for Phase 2 because we're not in a rush. Phase 1 is what's most important right now. So follow us along if you want to continue to see us develop these 28 townhomes from start to finish. We're going to give you all the details and everything that you need to know for you to get started on your development journey.
So talk about the steel plate and that sewer line.
So they backfilled all this sewer, but they did not backfill here, and they put a steel plate for safety, obviously, so any heavy car, truck, bus, doesn't matter, can drive over it. There's a hole down there, and what's happening is either the sewer or the storm chambers over there that are sitting are going to be placed here. And what that is that's going to connect, and it's going to be the manhole for access to the main sewer or storm facility. And so they'll have one over there, and they'll have a second one down there. They require a manhole every X amount of feet, depending on your jurisdiction.
Why are you not 100% confident, and why does it not matter on what that is?
Well, it doesn't matter for me because I hired the experts and the professionals. They're following the approved plans that were stamped by the city. And so I'm not worried if it's a sewer or a storm. All I know is they're going to follow the plans, and the city's going to sign it off. I will not pay the bill until it's done correctly.
Okay, can you tell everybody that's watching, what are those 2x4s in the ground right there, and what do they mean?
The 2x4s back there, one of them's already spray painted green. What they're doing is when they put in the laterals, they put where it's stub to, meaning where it stops. So when we're building the duplex or the building in the future, you know exactly where the sewer line is. So they're gonna spray paint these 2x4s, and when we're ready to put the building down, the excavator's gonna come in, dig right there, and know that's where the connection point is for that sewer lateral. They will also have a stub point. Well, typically water is just a water meter, so they don't have a stub point for water. But if there's some sort of storm connection as well, they'll spray paint a 2x4 white for the storm, which is stormwater is the rain, where the rain goes and connects. You know, from the gutters on the house, it's gonna connect into a storm system that goes in the street.
So what's the difference between development and construction?
Development is everything you see under the ground. Construction is every vertical or building is everything you see going up. So right now we're doing development, which is everything underneath, all the infrastructure and everything you need, including all the utilities, sewer, water, power, storm, curbs, sidewalks, pavement, all the grading, everything that you see here that's going on.
Okay, now once you have all your development permits approved, you've done what's called the site work, was what we're looking at right here. What is the next step after the site work? Is there more paperwork?
So step 1, you want to get all the plans approved, which is going to be going through the city process. You hire a civil engineer and you go through the process for about a year. It's a preliminary approval, which is just the land is approved based on the law and the code. Then you go to civil engineering where they design how to actually build it. And then you break ground and you hire these excavators and underground contractors to get the work done for you. Once you've completed all the site work, you submit the plat, which is the piece of paper that's showing every legal lot that you're going to record and develop. The city reviews it, makes sure everything checks off, and then the county reviews it and says, yep, everything looks good based on what you've said you're going to do and what was approved. They sign it off and they record it, and instead of being one big lot, it's now going to be split up into small lots, and you're ready to then submit your building permits and start building each home or duplex.
Okay, so development is different than a builder or new construction.
So development is different than a builder or new construction. The developer again, does everything underground. So I consider it horizontal. So everything horizontal. A builder does everything vertical. And that's a wrap, you guys. So follow us. We're going to go through the duplex process. We're going to show you how we build it. So I hire a general contractor. I'm not a GC. I like the development side of things, but the GC is going to be building it, and I'm going to be overseeing and watching the process from start to finish. I know how to build a house just because I've seen it built enough times, but my main thing that I enjoy and love is development, negotiating, getting these kind of properties under contract, and making it happen. The neighbor right there, I was negotiating to buy this one as well, is another 32 units. A friend of mine actually ended up winning the bid on that one, so he's going to be building 32 units next to our 28.
You look really young. Can you tell everybody, how did you get into development?
I offered to work for free for a developer, and he took me under his wing, and I learned everything I needed to learn and made some mistakes and saw some projects go through some tough times, and I learned from probably the hardest projects I managed were the biggest lessons to now be able to do what I'm doing today.
How old were you when you got into development then?
I was 21.
21 years old.
Yeah.
That's impressive. How old are you now?
I am 28.
Okay. If somebody was 21 years old and wanted to get into development, what would you recommend to them?
I would say you don't need to go work for somebody for 4 years. That's what I did. You can learn everything online. There's education programs out there, and you can expedite that process and cut it to less than 6 months. If you dedicated yourself, people go to college for 4 years. If you dedicate yourself to 6 months of learning, you can go do the same thing I'm doing now, or trial and error. You got to just go wing it and do it. If you want to go work for a developer, go, but I would get the education, because the education, learning exactly what somebody does and how they do it, is one of the best ways for you to expedite that process. If I could go back in time, that's what I would have done. I would have just taken a development course.
This looks really expensive. Where do you get the money to do this?
So after I built my first house with my own cash that I saved up, I had a ton of investors reach out to me, and fast forward today, we've done over 240 houses. And the reason for that is they see the success in the projects, and naturally people are calling and asking to be part of these projects. And so with this one, I have a partner, and I essentially, we came in together on the deal, and we're doing it together. So it's definitely possible for you to do big projects. It just is a matter of you proving yourself and having some sort of track record.
So you're telling me you're doing all of this with none of your own money?
Correct.
That's impressive.
It's right here. If you have the knowledge and the experience and the skill, you don't need the money.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, let's continue walking down the site.
So this right here, typically, I don't even know what this is called, I'll be honest, but you essentially use this when you're digging out these sewer laterals. You put this thing in place of the trench to make sure the walls don't cave in. And if somebody's in there hooking up the sewer, it would be really unfortunate if everything collided. So when they dig, they throw this in there, and they're connecting the sewer lines and protecting the person that's doing all the work and laying all the pipe. So they typically have that. And then, let's see here.
It's kind of interesting that those black pipes are different than those green pipes.
One is sewer, one is storm, and one of them is most likely going to be water. So I think from what I know is those are storm pipes, the black ones. The other thing that you guys also have to keep in mind, when we graded out this entire site, it was originally all the trees, just like you see around. What you have to have is a geotech engineer come out and test the soil to make sure that it's compacted enough. What does that mean? It's hard enough and they've pushed down enough. And so they'll bring out these equipments, the big rollers that literally roll and put a lot of weight on the dirt, because you don't want the dirt to settle in the future and then the house is going to go into a pit. So the geotech tests it to make sure it's compacted enough to where it can hold a house. And a lot of times if it's not, you have to bring in things like rock, gravel, and ensure that it's sturdy ground. And sometimes we have to bring in sand. So there are times we have to bring in sand. It's just a mixture of soils, and I learned all this from the geotech. And so they bring in different types of soils to make sure that the ground gets compacted enough to where it's stable and it's firm enough to build something on it.
Talk about the professionals in this space and why someone so young like you doesn't need to be an expert in pipes, in surveys, in geotech, yet can hire everybody and know the parts and moving pieces.
So all you have to know is the process, right? As long as you know how it works, you don't need to know the details. So I hire civil engineers, geotech, surveyors, underground contractors. Everything I hire is because I understand the process and who is involved. I don't have to know anything. I'm not a civil engineer. I don't know many things. The only thing I do know, which I think is really important, is code. So the code is really important, meaning what can I build here? Because I have to know, can I build 28 townhomes or can I only build 6 houses, custom homes? And so the value of the land changes based on what I can build. That's really what I'm an expert in, is understanding what I can actually do on the site, and then I rely on the rest of the professionals to get through to the finish line and get me the approved plan so we can start building homes.
That's actually really interesting. So depending on what you decide to build, talk about the value of the land and maybe the calculation that goes into the value of the land based on what you can build.
So what I typically like to do is I like to pay per lot. So if it's really small townhome lots, I'll pay a smaller price per lot. If they're really nice, beautiful custom homes, I'll pay a higher price per lot. You just have to understand what the zoning allows. This zoning allows apartments or high density townhomes. And so when I buy these projects, I run a pro forma, which is a calculation of, okay, if I can fit 28 townhomes, what can I pay for the land and still have a profit margin of 25 to 30%. If you guys don't know, these are water meter boxes. So when they're gonna install the water lines, they're going to put these water meter boxes in, and they're gonna have the water meter lids. And once these are installed and we're ready to build, then we pay for a water meter when we're ready to build the house. The city comes in and installs the water meter, which allows you to have water in your home and calculate how much water you're using per month to then get you a water bill.
Can you explain a sample calculation on how you came up with a calculation of what you could pay for this land?
Yeah, I mean, there's many different ways. Sometimes people do per acre, per usable acre, or per unit. In this case, 30,000 per unit is pretty fair. In some cases, you might, if you're doing a 10-acre development, you might pay 100,000 an acre for the development. You might pay 300,000 an acre. So there's different ways to calculate. At the end of the day, it comes down to the numbers. So I always run it backwards. If I was to sell the lot, how much is it going to cost me to develop? How much is it going to cost for the soft cost to get it approved? What's left for the remainder of the land, and how much profit do I want to make? Off the cuff, when you run the numbers on enough of these deals, you'll know what price you want to offer. But I always fact check my work with my pro forma.
Awesome, guys. So this is Fircrest Phase 1. As you guys can see, we're excited to bring you guys how many townhomes?
It's going to be 28.
28 townhomes.
Oh, here's what they use to compact the soil. So you'll be able to see right here, this equipment, I don't even know what it's called, but this is what they use to make sure the soils are very compacted. Then the geotech comes out, tests the soil, and says, yeah, you're good. A lot of times you'll have bad soil, and bad soil they have to then remove and put structural fill, which is just better quality soil. Here we have really good soil. That was one of the advantages when we were purchasing this. The geotech said, you guys have great soils. It infiltrates really well. What that means is when it rains, the soil soaks up the water faster. And so there are sites where they calculate how many inches per hour will it infiltrate. So let's just say it rains 5 inches in 1 hour, but the infiltration rate is 10 inches an hour, then it'll infiltrate faster than the rain is coming. Now there's other sites where I've had it, it's clay. Clay soil is not the best. I think the East Coast has a lot of clay. If it infiltrates 1 inch an hour and it rains 5 inches, it's gonna take 5 hours for the water to disappear. So that's where soil becomes extremely important. You want a little bit more sandy or rocky soil. Cool.
There's a fire hydrant over there.
Yeah, there's a water easement over there. So there's a water line running across that fence.
Ooh, easements.
It's a 10-foot easement, meaning there's a 10-foot area that I cannot touch. I can't build anything. I can't do anything with. So when I was developing and going through the city, I found that easement. I never bought the property yet. I had to call the owner and we had to negotiate that amount of land off the purchase price, and I got a reduction because it took away 3 units. So it was originally 31 and now it's 28 because of that easement, which is just an access area for the city to give. The city has an easement, which is again an access area / designated area that is water for those apartments.
Awesome. I think that's a great first update. Excited for you guys to follow along this project from start to finish.